On today's show, the Houston Rockets absolutely crush the Wemby-less San Antonio Spurs. Amen Thompson's footwork and touch very much on display in this game. Steven Adams' playmaking ability and Uncle Jeff Green, some vintage Jeff Green in this one. It's all coming up right here at Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Thursdays. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets, where the best way you can help us grow our show is to listen every single day on a podcast platform of your choosing. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Drop us a comment while you're there. Tell me your thoughts on the game. Do a drive-by. Say go Rockets. It helps us out a ton. Also, subscribe to the daily Locked On Rockets newsletter. Would sincerely appreciate that. Now, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Head on over to FanDuel.com. Let's talk a little bit about this Houston Rockets 118-106 win against the Spurs. The final score does not do this game justice. This was a complete and utter blowout. The Rockets led the whole way, wire-to-wire victory. Spurs never led in this game. Rockets opened things up with a 34-20 first quarter. They led by 18 at halftime. Their largest lead in this game was 28 points, and the only reason the final score looks the way it does is because the third stringers completely let go of the rope late in this game. More on that a little bit later. But got a lot of different things I want to talk about from this one. Amen Thompson, Jalen Green, Dillon Brooks leading the way. Steven Adams and Jeff Green, their impact off the Rockets bench, some of the struggles for Alperen, Sengun, and Jabari Smith Jr. in this one, as well as Cam Whitmore's apathetic approach to playing basketball. We're going to get to all of that, but I want to start with Amen Thompson, because I think he was very clearly the player of the game in this one. Led the way for the Rockets with 25 points on 12 of 15 shooting. He was 1 of 3 from downtown, had 9 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 blocks, and 2 turnovers in his 30 minutes of run. And look, no Wembanyama for the Spurs, and they really had, they're starting Bismack Biyombo at the 5 spot. The Spurs have basically zero rim protection at this point with no Wemby, and he's obviously a huge part of their team, their identity, everything that they do on both the offensive and defensive side of the floor. So not having Wemby, this team is gonna struggle quite a bit. But Amen Thompson got the memo and understood, okay, no Wembanyama, no rim protection, bet. I'm getting downhill and I'm gonna finish everything in and around the paint, because there was nobody to dissuade Amen Thompson from getting into the teeth of the defense. There was nobody there waiting for him to try and block his shot or to try and, deter him from getting all the way to the rim. And in this one, though, it wasn't just him getting downhill and finishing at the rim. There was some of that, right? But this truly might be the craftiest, shiftiest, most in his bag kind of game that we've ever seen from Amen Thompson. And it still feels like we're only just barely scratching the surface of what he's capable of as a player, especially in the offensive end on a night-to-night basis. It feels like, earlier this season, a couple months ago, whatever, he really started to understand that when he gets downhill, when he gets ahead of steam, or, kind of isolates on a defender and kind of gets to his little spin move, that he can just elevate and finish, and there's nothing opposing defenders can do about it. He's so quick. He's got such an explosive jump that once he elevates, it's game over. And he's gotten to the point where I won't say automatic from that little 3 to 8 foot range. So just outside of essentially layup dunk territory around the rim, but that little 3 foot to 8 foot range away from the rim, Amen Thompson has been absolutely sensational so far. And sometimes it's just him driving, getting stopped, and then turning into a fadeaway, or sometimes it's him driving, getting that little Euro step push shot that he's got, or the little floater that he's got. In this one, though, we saw some absolutely impeccable footwork from Amen Thompson, where he would get downhill, pick up the dribble, and then he would fake and then twist and then fake again and then up and under. Like he had that one play. That one play was probably my favorite one of the entire game, where he drove to the right side of the rim, hit the fake, then turned around for another fake, like a little step back kind of, and then went up and under with like a little bit of like a jelly roll kind of, off his fingertips, for two off the glass. He had another one where he drove in and then faked and then went up and under for like, he was a good few feet away from the basket and just elevated from like a standstill stop and just dunked the ball clean, went up and under the defender's arms. And he had a bunch of those plays in this game. And it really just feels like at this point, he gave a shout out to Hakeem Olajuwon in his post-game interview with Vanessa Richardson. And look, I have no idea if he's like secretly been in the lab with Hakeem Olajuwon, which is where some of this footwork is coming from, but it looked a little Dream-esque with how he was shaking defenders loose at various points in this game, in and around the basket. And none of this was off of like, traditional post-ups or anything like that. It was just, but we know for a fact that like guards and other perimeter players have worked with Hakeem in the past. We know that Kobe Bryant worked with him. We know that LeBron's worked with him. Like he's worked with a number of players over the years. And if Hakeem hasn't spent any time with Amen Thompson yet, that needs to be like priority number one, is for the Rockets to get Amen in the lab with Hakeem a little bit, at some point this upcoming offseason or whatever, because you can see how those types of moves would absolutely benefit Amen Thompson in this little glimpse that we got against the Spurs. And I can only imagine how crazy it would be to see Amen Thompson like posting up smaller guards and, getting a little bit of a back to the basket kind of game down low if they're trying to, guard him with a smaller defender or on a switch or things like that. So it's very tantalizing to think about. And again, seeing his impact in this game, obviously we know what he's capable of defensively, which shout out to the Rockets defense, who held all the Spurs starters to single digit scoring numbers. No double-digit scorers in the Spurs starting lineup. Their highest scorer in the starting lineup was Devin Vassell, 9 points on 4 of 9 shooting. De'Aaron Fox had 7 points on 3 of 12 shooting to go along with 2 turnovers. And he was blocked at least once by Amen Thompson. I want to say he might have been blocked twice by Amen Thompson, but the one block that I know for sure happened was like one of the most disrespectful blocks, because look, I know that like the too small gesture, right? I can't do it on camera, but like the too small gesture is usually reserved for when you like body somebody offensively. But the block that Amen Thompson had on De'Aaron Fox, I really wish that that Amen had like hit De'Aaron with the too small gesture, because that's what it felt like with De'Aaron Fox, who's all of 6'3", maybe 6'4" on a good day, going up against 6'8" Amen Thompson, 6'7", whatever. And Amen like blocked it with like his forearm. Looked like a dad blocking his son in the driveway on like a Nerf hoop or whatever. Anyways, look, we know what Amen Thompson's capable of defensively. He's got to be a lock this season for All-NBA defensive, one of the All-NBA defensive teams at a minimum. I feel like first team is not too much of a stretch, but at a minimum, he'll be on one of the all-defensive teams, and it still feels like he's just scratching the surface offensively. But the fact that he's already this good, that he's gotten this much better, like exponentially in such a short amount of time, as a starter this season in 29 games, Amen Thompson is averaging just under 17 points a contest, 9.5 rebounds, just under 5 assists, to go along with 1.8 blocks and 1.7 steals per game. If Amen was playing on a garbage team, like a tanking team, and just getting to do whatever he wants whenever he wants, it's hard not to imagine him averaging like 25 a game, along with like 10 to 12 rebounds and like anywhere from 7 to 10 assists, depending on how good his teammates are on a given nightly basis. And that's what his peak is going to be as a player. Again, I've talked about this comp before, but he's like a blend between Russell Westbrook and Giannis Antetokounmpo. He has future superstar written all over him. And yes, this might be a little bit of homerism and some home cooking and a bit of an overreaction to a Spurs team missing their best player. But my God, is it not hard to get excited about Amen Thompson when you see just what he's capable of on the basketball court? It's exciting stuff, man. He was absolutely in his bag in this game. Coming up, want to talk about Jalen Green and Dillon Brooks, the other two guys helping lead the charge for the Rockets in this game, as well as Steven Adams and Jeff Green, their impact off the bench. Plus, we'll talk about Sengun and Jabari's struggles and Cam Whitmore a little bit later on. We're going to get to all of that here in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. Using FanDuel's live betting feature is awesome because it keeps every moment of the game exciting, whether you're backing your team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three-pointer. Never feel like you missed your chance to get in on the fun. Plus, the app is so easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just go to FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, let's get to one of the next leaders for the Rockets in this game, Jalen Green. 21 points, 9 of 17 shooting, 3 of 8 from downtown, 7 boards, 4 assists, 3 turnovers. And look, for Jalen Green, I think this stretch without Fred VanVleet obviously has come with some struggles, but I also think this has been a really good stretch for the Rockets and for mostly for Jalen Green in kind of shouldering this responsibility as the lead guard, because it's only going to make him better when Fred does ultimately come back, which Ime Udoka did say on the broadcast that Fred is expected to be good to go for Saturday against the Kings. So that should be Fred VanVleet's return to the lineup, although we kind of already knew that, but it wasn't guaranteed yet. This was a bit more of a concrete answer from Udoka. But for Jalen, there's been, questions about his consistency. There's been questions about his decision making. The consistency bug has more or less been squashed. Like, he's been so pretty damn reliable for a very long stretch now, to where those games, those frustrating lows where it feels like he goes, 1 for whatever from downtown, or, single digit scoring games, or not finding a way to make an impact on a game. It feels like those are basically gone. And it feels like the thing that needs to just be refined now for Jalen Green is continuing to work on the decision making, right? Because there's the occasional, he'll drive into a crowd of defenders and turn the ball over, or he'll, drive in and try and, finish through multiple defenders as opposed to making the kick out read. But even those are fewer and further between. He had some nice passes in this game, some good decision making, taking what the defense gave him without trying to force the issue too much. Similar to Amen Thompson, he understood, okay, no Wemby in this game. That means getting downhill is easy, finishing the rim is easy. And I really do think that this little stretch without Fred, although it's come with some losing and some frustrations, I think it's also been really beneficial to Jalen, and obviously also Amen Thompson with his increased ball handling responsibility and playmaking responsibilities. I didn't even talk about Amen Thompson because he's improved so much as a playmaker in such a short amount of time as well. I had my doubts and reservations before about Amen Thompson ever being a true primary ball handler, but some of the kick out passes and reads that he's making when defenses do decide to double team him or collapse, when he had a really great dish to Jabari Smith Jr. It might have been the first play of the game or the second play of the game, super early in this one, where he drove in, the defense collapsed in on him, and Jabari made a perfectly timed cut, and Amen was able to just dish him the ball easy two at the rim. So his playmaking chops are also improving drastically, which it's just scary how good Amen Thompson's getting in such a short amount of time. But for Jalen Green, right, he's doing everything you want him to do as the lead scoring option on one of the top teams in the Western Conference. And we're gonna have to do a deep dive on him soon here in comparison to some of the other elite two guards in the NBA, because Jalen's really holding his own. I'm incredibly impressed and proud of the work that he's put in to get to this stage in his career. Honestly, it's been really impressive to see play out the way that it has. And as somebody who had my doubts before about like where Jalen Green's career trajectory was headed and whether or not he was going to be able to like, arise to some of the expectations of that, number 2 overall pick and some of the lofty goals that that he had set for himself and that the Rockets had set for him and that fans had set for him. There's still room to grow. There's still room for improvement, but I think he's on track right now. Things have looked great with Jalen. I'm pleasantly surprised. Elsewhere for the Rockets in this game, Dillon Brooks was the 3rd leading scorer, 19.7 of 13 shooting, 5 of 8 from downtown. And I just want to give DB a shout out because even though he's been a little polarizing at times, some of the defensive lapses here and there, and there's question marks about, the Rockets' future starting lineup once Fred VanVleet is back, and like, do you remove Amen Thompson? Do you keep? Also, it very much feels like Jabari Smith Jr. is probably just going to keep coming off the bench at this point. That's just kind of where I'm at, and that's where I think Ime is probably at. So I think you can expect that to be the starting lineup on Saturday night against the Kings. It'll be Fred, Jalen, Dillon, Amen, Sengun with Jabari and Tari both coming off the bench. But Dillon is closing in. He's at like 41.5%, or maybe even a little bit better than that from downtown in the month of February. And he's closing in on 40% from 3 for the season. His 3-point shooting has been such a bright spot for the Houston Rockets, and for him to be the Rockets like de facto designated sharpshooter. And, at times he does still have like his little like kind of Dillon like CTE moments or whatever on the court where he makes some poor offensive decisions or decides to go one-on-one at an inopportune time. He's been a really consistent stabilizing force for this Rockets team where he'll pick up the scoring, at times when needed. He obviously always takes the toughest defensive assignment, even if he should probably pass some of those along to Amen Thompson at this stage in his career. But I just want to give him some credit for being the Rockets' in-house sharpshooter, because I didn't expect that to be what Dillon Brooks brought to the table when the Rockets originally brought him over here a year and a half ago. And last season, I thought maybe it's just like an outlier season, like he's shooting the lights out of the ball, cool. And it did regress a little bit as the season wore on. But Dillon's basically a 3-and-D, like a 40% 3-and-D role player. Like, it's absolutely insane on great value on an incredibly team-friendly contract. Couldn't ask for more out of Dillon Brooks than what he's giving the Houston Rockets right now. And I want to give I'll talk about Sengun here just for a moment, because Sengun, if you're just box score watching, you'd be like, oh my God, did Sengun get benched? He only played 19 minutes. He only had 9 points, 1 of 5 shooting. It was just a weird game for Sengun. He got in some early foul trouble that limited him, or some foul trouble in the second quarter, three fouls, had to sit the rest of the half. So he only played 11 first half minutes, and then it was one of those things where he never really found a rhythm. It's not that he was playing poorly. It's not that, he was struggling or anything. The 1 of 5 shooting looks weird, but then he was also 7 of 8 at the free throw line. So he was not only getting to the free throw line a ton, but also hitting them, which is always really nice when Sengun converts on his free throws. He had 11 rebounds, 5 of them on the offensive glass. So he was active and generating, extra opportunities and whatnot. Had some assists baked in there. It was just a weird night. And because the Rockets were so easily stomping the Spurs in that third quarter, he only played the first 7 or 8 minutes of the third quarter and then checked out and never came back into the game. So it was just a weird night for Sengun at the end of the day. I'm not looking too much into it. If anything, it's just a little bit more of the same of, sometimes he gets off to these slow starts and then finds himself as the game wears on. But because Amen and Jalen and Dillon all had it going in this game, he didn't really need to step up and score the ball at any point. And the Rockets were already thoroughly just crushing the Spurs by the time Sengun would have needed to kind of step up a little bit more in that third quarter. So he was able to take a little bit of an off night. And, for a guy who gets as much usage as Sengun does, playing only 19 minutes on the second night of a back-to-back when the Rockets have just played 4 straight sets of back-to-backs. Like, it's nice that Ime was able to get a lot of rest for all of his starters in this game across the board. Jalen only played 28 minutes, Sengun 19 minutes, Dillon 29 minutes, Amen 30 minutes, Jabari 32 minutes. Like, that's the kind of game you want on the second night of a back-to-back where your starters, they take care of business, you get some help from the bench, you get a big lead, and you're able to rest all your guys basically for a quarter and a half at the end of the game. The starters all checked out with, anywhere from 4 to 5 minutes left in that third quarter, and it was basically game over. So not gonna look too much into the struggles of Sengun. However, because Sengun was struggling and dealing with the foul troubles, the Rockets needed somebody to step up, and Steven Adams did just that. We got to talk about his impact off the bench, in particular the playmaking from Steven Adams on display in this game, as well as some vintage Uncle Jeff Green, and we got to talk about Cam Whitmore in his brief little stint at the end of this one. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Robinhood. With Robinhood Gold, you can now enjoy the VIP treatment, receiving a 3% IRA match on retirement contributions. The privileges of the very privileged are no longer exclusive. With Robinhood Gold, your annual IRA contributions are boosted by 3%, plus you also get 4% APY on your cash in non-retirement accounts. That's over 8 times the national savings average. The perks of the high net worth are now available for any net worth. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. To receive your 3% boost on annual IRA contributions, sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk, rate subject to change. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold at $5 a month for 1 year from first match. Must keep funds in IRA for 5 years. Go to Robinhood.com/boost. Over 8 times the national savings average account interest rate claim is based on data from the FDIC as of November 18th, 2024. Robinhood Financial LLC member SIPC. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, let's talk a little bit about the bench brigade in this one, as well as we'll get to some of the not so fun topics. I'll talk a little bit about Jabari later and also Cam Whitmore. But shout out to Steven Adams, who stepped into this game, and the first thing that really stood out was his passing. His passing was incredible. I think Steven Adams is such an underrated passer. And I will say one thing that does bother me a little bit is some of the actions and sets that the Rockets run when Steven Adams is in the game. Why can't we see those same actions being run when Sengun is in the game? Because Sengun is more than capable, if not, he's at least as capable, if not maybe more capable of some of the passes that Steven Adams is making when, he's at at the elbow or whatever down low, and then other guys are cutting off him, or these little dribble handoff sets or whatever. And so Steven Adams had a great dish to Aaron Holiday for an easy 2, just a beautiful little bounce pass, super simple, clean set. And I see some of these actions, I'm like, why can't they do that for Sengun? Because sometimes, right, Sengun gets the ball and everything's just super stagnant around him. So I don't know if that's a coaching issue, a player's issue, the starters versus the bench guys, who knows? But Adams was very impactful in this game, especially in the absence of Alperen Sengun due to the foul trouble. He had 4 points on 2 of 6 shooting, had 5 boards, 5 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks, and only 1 turnover. Was a +6 in his 19 minutes. And maybe the coolest play that Adams had was the Rockets had a jump ball, and before the jump ball started, Adams motioned to Jalen Green, and he basically told Jalen, I'm going to tap it that way towards their basket. And so as soon as the jump ball goes up, Adams swats the hell out of the ball going the opposite direction away from the Rockets basket. And instead of, trying to recover recover a jump ball like normal, because he keyed Jalen in on what he was doing, Jalen took off to the races and got the ball and got a freebie on the other end. It was fantastic. And it was one of those super heady, high IQ moments from a vet like Steven Adams to be like, hey, I know exactly what I'm going to do for us here. Just a really cool moment. And then shout out to Funaki Stats, who has been on this show before. Steven Adams super fan from New Zealand, and he posted a clip of Adams doing the exact same thing with Ja Morant back when he was on the Grizzlies, where he tapped out a jump ball and Ja went and collected it and went the other way. So it is really cool seeing how Adams is able to help and complement Jalen Green's game, because there are some similarities to a guy like or a player like Jalen and a player like Ja. They are very different in certain respects, but they're also very similar in other regards. So just a really cool play from Steven Adams, really cool moment, and just very impactful. He also did a great job screening in this game. Some of the downhill drives that Amen Thompson got in this game were as a direct result of Steven Adams completely like boxing out his man or creating like a driving lane for Amen Thompson to be able to only have to beat his man off the dribble or only have to finish, over the outstretched arms of his defender as opposed to having a second defender cheating over and trying to cover. So Adams just doing all the things that he does as that big, that massive mountain of a dude down low. And then also Uncle Jeff, very impactful in this game. 13 points in just 20 minutes of run, was 6 of 12 from the floor, had a few rebounds in there, had some kind of vintage Uncle Jeff moments out there on the court. He still has a lot of game left, a lot of energy, and I'm honestly surprised that Ime didn't start using Jeff Green a little bit more than he did, or more than he has recently. It definitely felt like, especially in the early part of the season, that, certain nights, back-to-backs, whatever, where you could have used Jeff Green a little bit more, seeing as how they used him so much last season. But he was out there laughing, having a good time. And Jeff Green was mic'd up for the Rockets' Wired Up Wednesdays. And, man, he is one of the funniest characters on the whole team. I clipped a couple of the good lines that he dropped for us.
Anything you say can and will be used against you in the Houston court of law.
Oh man. And then he hit this one with Amen Thompson, because there was a point where Alperen Sengun tried to lob up what would have been a absolutely filthy alley-oop to Amen Thompson, who then he caught the pass and tried to slam it home with one hand, and he got hung on the rim a little bit and missed it. And this is what Jeff Green had to say right after that happened.
Hey, Twin! Get up, Twin! If you can't dunk it, lay it up!
Those two guys are constantly getting after each other, messing with each other, cracking jokes. And look, this, I've talked about it before, but the vibes around this team are incredible. Like, everybody gets along. They've got the right mix of personalities and voices in that locker room, where guys can poke fun at each other, but also where they, can get a little serious. Like, I didn't mention this the other night, but after the win against Milwaukee, where Alperen Sengun had the behind the head pass turnover late in the game, Ime Udoka talked about it in the post-game presser, but he ran back like the final 30 seconds or so of the game for everybody, and they had some laughs. Like, there were some, guys cracking jokes, whatever, messing with LP about that, and he had some laughs about it, but they also got serious about it, and they were like, but that's not acceptable. Like, we can't do that. Like, it's funny, whatever, it happened, but we got to clean that stuff up. Like, that we can't play that way. And that's kind of the level of this team. They understand, and they're capable of joking around, having fun, being friendly with one another, getting along, but they also know when to get serious and when to lock in. And that's a really unique thing for a team to have. And again, like, the locker room, the chemistry that these guys have is really on another level. And I think that's part of the reason for a lot of the success that we've seen out of this team so far this year. Let's get to a couple of the not so fun things here at the end. First of which is Jabari Smith Jr. has been a little rough, a little rusty since coming back. He's only had one good game since coming back from his injury. It was that very first outing where he came off the bench, 15 points, 5 of 9 shooting. It's been pretty rough outside of that. 1 of 5 3-point shooting in the next 2 games. And then in this one, he finished with, 0 of 5 3-point shooting. So 2 for 15 over the last 3 games. Not a great look for Jabari Smith Jr. However, even when the offense isn't translating, he's still defending at a high level. He's still rebounding at an incredibly high level. He's hustling. He's doing the dirty work stuff. It's just unfortunate because Jabari really was like rounding into form, and he was shooting the lights out of the ball before he went down due to injury. So hopefully he can get back to the level that he was at pre-injury, but it's just unfortunate to see, him kind of, he looks a little bit like he did earlier this season, right? Where he's pressing a little bit, where he's a little too quick to pull the trigger at times, or he's like a little too excited, or, maybe not sure when his next shot's going to come. So he's like trying to get up buckets. And at the end of the day, Jabari is very much a team player. He wants the best outcome for this squad. And if that means he's going to come off the bench to close out this season, because Amen Thompson fits better in the starting lineup, and Ime doesn't want to rock the boat with what was working for an extended period, then we'll see what that looks like. And hopefully Jabari can settle into that off the bench role And hopefully it provides the Rockets with a level of lineup versatility, being able to check him in and, again, either bring him in to check in on the wing for like Dillon Brooks or Amen, or bring him in as the backup 5 for Sengun, what have you. There's a lot of options there for Ime Udoka. All right. Now, this game was a total blowout. Again, Rockets completely won this game. This game was over by the end of the first quarter. They throw in all the third stringers for the final, I don't know, like 5-ish minutes of the game. You know, that's when Cam and Nate Williams and Reed Sheppard all more or less checked in. Jock Landale a little bit ahead of them. He played 8 minutes in the fourth quarter. But this is like, and look, I'm not trying to overreact here or anything, but you know, for anybody wondering what happened to Cam Whitmore, or like why he maybe like, you know, didn't get a shot at being in the rotation before and then like seemingly is now out of the rotation again, like a big part of it is, well, a big part of it is talent. Like the Rockets just have a lot of talent up and down this roster. They really do. They've got a locked in top 7. It's the starters, plus now going to be Tari and Jabari off the bench, right? Steven Adams has been really impactful, so he's another piece that's there. Occasionally they're mixing in, you know, Aaron Holiday or Jayshawn Tate for those kind of guard minutes or those extra wing minutes or what have you. And that's basically your 9 or 10 man rotation, give or take, on any given night. It's going to be really hard to break into what is already a very good 9-man rotation at the end of the day, especially as a second-year player. But here's the problem, is if you're Cam Whitmore, you cannot check into garbage time of a game and play as disinterested and apathetic as he did. You just can't do it. Like, your coach is Ime Udoka, and Ime Udoka is the most no-nonsense, no BS, like work ethic and mentality above all else. Like, for everybody who's asking, why is Reed Sheppard getting minutes when Cam Whitmore isn't earlier this season? A big part of it was because, like, one, the Rockets were trying to see if Reed Sheppard was ready to play those backup point guard minutes, and spoiler alert, unfortunately, he wasn't. But a big part of it's also Reed Sheppard's got an incredible work ethic, right? He's like first one in the gym, one of the last ones to ever leave the gym at Rockets practice, constantly going through his shooting drills, everything, right? He has a work ethic that's like similar to like Steph Curry levels of like working on his shooting. And obviously I know Reed's been kind of wildly disappointing so far through his rookie season. So maybe this is like not a great comparison to make here, but it's frustrating because Cam has all the talent in the world. He's so incredibly gifted and he's capable of making a huge impact when he's on the floor. But you know, to be able to play for Ime, like it's got to be a mentality thing. It's got to be a work ethic thing. It's got to be a defense first kind of mentality. And I do think that Cam has taken massive strides in a lot of those areas, but you're not going to find a way back into the rotation by playing like you just don't care at the end of a game in garbage time. That pass that he threw where he like so lazily tried to flip it back to Reed Sheppard, and Stephon Castle dove in there and stole the ball before the ball even left Cam's hands. Stephon was already making a play for the ball and went the other way, and then didn't even make any attempted effort to try and get back on defense or foul or get back in the action, just kind of walked it back the other way. Like, that can't be his mentality at the end of a game. Even if it's garbage time, even if you're frustrated about your role, whatever, that's not a great look. And I'm not trying to play body language police here or anything, but it's just, you know, I have incredibly high hopes for Cam Whitmore, and it does just really make you wonder, you know, how much of Cam's role on this team and his limited role, I should say, on this team is truly because of the guys in the rotation ahead of him, or is it really his own doing? And, you know, why isn't Cam the one getting the Reed Sheppard minutes or the Aaron Holiday minutes or the Jayshawn Tate minutes, right? And you could make an easy argument and be like, oh, well, he's not a guard. He doesn't do the things that Aaron Holiday or Reed Sheppard can do. Yeah, that's fine. You can absolutely still stagger Jalen and Amen and Fred VanVleet. You have other primary ball handlers. You can just let Cam be a wing and play on the outside and do his thing. Aaron Holiday doesn't play as a primary initiator. Aaron Holiday plays as a 6-foot-tall wing for this Rockets team. Cam Whitmore could absolutely be getting those minutes in the Rockets rotation if he could just get out of his own way. That's what it kind of feels like at this point. So with that, I want your thoughts on everything from this Rocket Spurs game. Let me know your thoughts in the YouTube comments. Remember, the best way to help us grow the show is to listen every single day on a podcast platform for choosing. Like, comment, subscribe on YouTube, subscribe to the daily Locked on Rockets newsletter. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked on Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.